right. Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Blitz Banter podcast. My name is Adam Bernstein. I'm joined here with Hunter DeCiver and Mark Gartenberg. Fellas, it's great to be with you guys. I'm very excited to get this done. Mark, I know this has been in the works for a while, so I'm finally glad that we're able to sit down and talk some football as always. I think it's worth letting the fans or our audience know a little bit about ourselves. So I'll start. Once again, my name is Adam Bernstein. I went to the University of Rhode Island, the heart of CAA football, FCS football. Can't really relate much to Hunter, but yeah, went to the University of Rhode Island, studied sports media. I work at SiriusXM right now and have a podcast called Roadie Rumble as well. And like I said, I'm very excited to be here. I've known these guys since 2012, so 12 years. We met back in summer camp and have always loved talking sports and talking football.
All right, yeah, I'm Hunter DeCiver. I went to the University of Alabama, graduated a year ago now. I majored in sports media. Reason why Adam was saying he's jealous, I guess you could say, is the mecca of college football. Um, yeah, I work at Sports Illustrated for Alabama. Actually, just started pretty much today. Been working there for a couple of years, but now I'm officially here and in Tuscaloosa. I've known these guys for 12 years. However, I was in a different cabin than they were, but then we merged the next year, and we've been really good friends ever since.
Yeah, and I guess we're saving the best school for the last, obviously. I went to Quinnipiac University, and my name is Mark Gartenberg. I studied finance, and I also graduated with an MBA. Quinnipiac is not a huge football school, as many of you guys probably know, but we are a huge hockey school, and we just won the national championship last year in 2023. So that's fantastic. Yeah, and I've known Adam and Hunter for the last 12 years now. We went to camp with each other at Camp Nockamixon, and it's been the greatest 12 years of my life. We've all been out of camp for about 2 to 3 years now, but we always talk about it to this day. So let's get on with it.
Absolutely. All right, guys. So I think we discussed talking about some football headlines, and I think what we'll do for every episode going forward is just talking about, the news, the headlines for that day. We're recording this on Tuesday, so 2 days before the Thursday night football game, Ravens Chiefs. So I'll start with just some headlines that I've seen, and we can kind of discuss. I know we have a few topics for this segment, but going to start it off with the 49ers. I know we talked about this before we started recording. To me, they've had a pretty up and down offseason, is the best way of putting that. Going back to Brandon Ayuk, not knowing, is he going to be on the team this year? Is he going to be traded? He obviously put in for a trade request, and he did end up re-signing, so he is back with the team. They have an electric wide receiver room with him, Debo, George Kittle, obviously. But sticking with the wide receivers, some unfortunate news. Obviously, their rookie receiver out of Florida, Ricky Pearsall, is going to be out for the first 4 weeks. He suffered a non-football injury off the field. Heartbreaking if you've read the headlines and saw the news. Obviously, not what you want for a young player and a rookie with a lot of promise of him. And then sticking with the Niners offense, Christian McCaffrey, who has been out of training camp and off of practice, has been holding out of practice because of an injury related. I believe it was his calf. He strained his calf. He's been out of practice. He's finally returning as of today, so we can expect to see him on Monday night against the Jets. And finally, the last point for the Niners, and then we'll get into some conversation about the 49ers. 11-time Pro Bowl offensive tackle, left tackle, Trent Williams is finalizing a deal, is finally working on a deal with the Niners to come back. It'd be great to have him on Monday night against the Jets as well. So if you guys want to get into the 49ers first, and then we'll go from there and move on to the next topics.
Yeah, sure. I'll start off. So just go player by player here. CMC, last year's reigning offensive player of the year, the calf injury was tough to, I guess, really project about his fantasy status for the last few weeks. But then again, he's really your consensus number one overall pick. He should be good to go. I mean, he's returning to practice today. I mean, obviously, missing out all those weeks could hurt for a lot of people, but I wouldn't say the same for him. He's kind of a much different status than pretty much any other running back. including guys like Brees Hall. Next, let's go with Ayuk. So he definitely had the most troubling offseason of maybe even any other player that wasn't like off the field related. Like whether it's like legal trouble or whatever. But yeah, I remember Steelers, Browns, Patriots were all possible links for him, and there was a viral video of him saying basically that he didn't want to be with the Niners, and it just was a really bad situation. I had him in fantasy football last year. And he was great. He's a great player. He's super consistent, and he's a big reason for why the Niners made the Super Bowl last year. That and all like the 9 other Pro Bowlers they have. So I mean, I think it's good that they have him back. The Niners were my candidate to win the Super Bowl last season before the season even started. It didn't happen in overtime, but I think it's crucial that he's back with their roster. And Trent Williams, probably the best offensive lineman of this decade. I'd say maybe like Joe Thomas from the Browns, who's long retired now. He's probably the only other guy that's in the candidacy, but he was more of a 2000s guy. Could argue Zach Martin in there too for the Cowboys, but it's crucial that he is a part of this offensive line and this team. And similar to McCaffrey, he doesn't really need too much practice to prove that he is the number one player at his position. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with that being said, looking at the 49ers, I just saw a post this morning from ESPN that the 49ers are working really hard to get a contract signed with Trent Williams. So that is fantastic news because literally 100% of the plays that are made by the 49ers are all made possible by Trent Williams because, as Hunter has said, like he's literally the best offensive lineman that is in the NFL today. And a lot of people don't really give too much credit to like the offensive line. They just think, oh, Christian McCaffrey is just that good, or Brandon Ayuk is making those plays. But like the offensive line is what's making it possible, from allowing the quarterback to actually throw the ball or to hand off the ball and allow the running back to actually make the play. So, that's just one thing. Also, I mean, with Brandon Ayuk, he's like the deep threat guy for the 49ers. Deebo Samuel, he's a really good wide receiver in himself. But like, if you look at Brandon Ayuk, most of his highlight reel plays are all down the field. And like, that's just what he does. So, if the 49ers lost that, they're losing huge potential to really move the ball down the field. And, with Christian McCaffrey, it's good to keep him healthy. And, as Hunter said, consensus number one overall pick in fantasy. He might just be the best offensive player in the NFL right now. Right now, they're looking to make a Super Bowl push. They're not in like the rebuilding stage. So, with having Brandon Ayuk back, with still having Deebo Samuel, with having Brock Purdy, and, the 49ers are trying to sign Trent Williams. Like, they need to get it done fast because, we're less than a week away from the Monday Night Football game. So, we need to see the 49ers ready to go, and they're going to make a Super Bowl push this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the reigning NFC champions. And I think one thing noting, and I'll add this, is I think for them, going to come down to injuries and health. Going back to McCaffrey, even before his Niner days with the Panthers, he was somebody that was always one of the best running backs in the league, and obviously now is the consensus number one, as Hunter said. But injuries have been a concern for him. So finally seeing him return to practice this morning is a good sign for them. And Jeremy Fowler from ESPN said that the 49ers have work to do, and he's told that Williams is not happy, and that there is a threat of him missing games, and that is real. So for them to get this deal done would be crucial because I can't stress enough how important he is to that offense. But we'll move on from the 49ers. Let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. Jamar Chase holding out of practice until he gets the contract that he's looking for. He wants to be the highest paid wide receiver in the league. Obviously, Justin Jefferson broke the bank earlier this offseason, became the highest paid wide receiver, but Jamar Chase stated that he would like to be the highest paid, even if it means the Bengals paying him a penny more. So, fellas, your thoughts on that and just what you expect out of the Bengals this year?
Yeah, so the whole weird thing about this to me is what usually players do is they negotiate a year before like their contract is done. But Jamar is 2 years ahead. So it's a little strange that he's doing all this. And don't get me wrong, he's a great player. He's a top 5 receiver in the game. But I mean, he's hasn't handled it great. I know he showed up to practice, I think 13 minutes late the other day, and he was in street clothes. It's just a bad look. And again, he's an amazing player. And does he deserve the money? Yeah, but I think he could wait a year before really this stuff really gets into more talks.
Yeah, I mean, Hunter makes a great point. I mean, I guess one thing to say about Jamar Chase is that, he's looking at every single wide receiver, almost every single good wide receiver in the NFL right now, like Brandon Ayuk, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, like they all just got their big contracts. And Amon-Ra St. Brown too. And then, now there's Jamar Chase, who like is arguably like second or third best wide receiver in the NFL. And, he's still on his rookie contract. And, there is the argument that he still has 2 years left and, he should wait another year. But the argument is also that I don't think he's had under a 1,000 yard receiving season. And, people compare him to as good as almost Justin Jefferson. But, me being a Vikings fan, I really don't think that Jamar Chase is as good as Justin Jefferson, but it's pretty close. When we're looking at the Bengals, they got guys like Joe Burrow, T. Higgins. Like, this is a team that's not in a rebuilding stage. Like, they're a team that's ready to make a Super Bowl push, just like I said with the 49ers. But, they only made the Super Bowl, what, just 2 years ago? When we're looking at the priorities of the Bengals and we're looking at the marketplace, you need to make an exception for the guy and re-sign him, because this is a guy that is going to be the wide receiver for your team for the foreseeable future, I would say. And you pair him alongside Joe Burrow, like that right there is almost enough to just make the Super Bowl by itself.
Yeah, just piggybacking off of that. Burrow, Jefferson, and Jamar were all teammates at LSU, and they won a national championship together. Justin Jefferson and Joe Burrow were in the same draft class, but Jamar waited another year. When they were up in the drafts, they had two choices. They could either help out their offensive line and draft now All-Pro Penny Sewell, or go with his teammate, Joe Burrow's teammate, in Jamar Chase. And it was really, really a tough choice between the two. And they obviously went with Chase, and they made it to the Super Bowl in his rookie year. And Chase broke several records on the way there. So I think, now I do think about it, I think it is important that they do re-sign him, because you don't want him holding out during this season.
Sticking with the Bengals, I think both of you just brought up great points. And I think going back to what Mark said, I mean, this is a team that didn't make the Super Bowl too long ago. I mean, that was 21. So we're talking about 2 years ago. This will be the third Super Bowl since they haven't been in the Super Bowl. And if you remember that year, they were a surprise team. Nobody had them going to the Super Bowl, and obviously the Rams took them down. They were a team that many people thought, even after winning the AFC Championship and going and finally beating the Chiefs, getting over that hump, that this is a young team. They're going to be a team to watch for a long time. And going off of what Hunter just said, if you remember that national championship, arguably one of the best teams in all of college football, this is the amount of players that came out of LSU from that year that went to the NFL, and seeing Burrow and Chase and having that pre-existing chemistry in college, and now seeing it on the Bengals is going to be a duo that we're going to get used to for a long time. So I think, like you guys just said, it's going to be something that we need to see happen. We need to see Jamar Chase come back to the Bengals. Another thing that's going to be important is the health and the injuries. I mean, Joe Burrow has dealt with his injuries on his own. If you remember earlier this offseason, T. Higgins was holding out. They're working on getting a contract done with him. They finally did. So I think there's a lot to look at when you look at the Cincinnati Bengals. But I'll ask you guys just to stick with them for one more second. What do you think the Bengals need to do? I mean, obviously the obvious answer is re-sign Jamar Chase, but what do they need to do to get back to the Super Bowl? Because they've struggled the last few years, but again, we've seen the bright spots. We've seen the flashes of success, and they have it. They have the resources. They just haven't been able to, once again, get over that hump and return back to the big game.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a couple things. Most notably would probably to enhance their run game. They just lost Joe Mixon to the Texans, and now they have Chase Brown, who's as their RB1, who is very inexperienced. I think he's only in his second year. So that's one thing. T. Higgins last year was really inconsistent, really, really inconsistent. He'd have games of 150 yards, but then the next week he'd have 30. And I think if he could really get the ball more targets, and obviously Joe Burrow being out for most of it, was the main reason. He needs to get more targets. So overall, Burrow healthy, T. Higgins more targets, and make sure Chase Brown is the pure RB1 and could replace Mixon.
Yeah, I think adding to what Hunter said, I think the Bengals can invest in their offensive line too. Like, I don't think it's the worst offensive line I've ever seen in the football league, but I think we've seen that having a good offensive line is very important to a team's success, like we see with the 49ers and like we see with the Kansas City Chiefs as well. Also, investing in the run game. They did just lose Joe Mixon, and I don't think that Joe Mixon is like one of the best running backs in the league by all means, but like he definitely made some good plays for the Bengals and helped them be successful. Like he's not just a nothing. And their defense as well. I mean, I think again a defense is also very important to a team's success. Like, when I said that, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase is enough to make the Super Bowl, like, yeah, it definitely is, but is it enough to win a Super Bowl? That's a different question. Because you see the Chiefs, they have a good defense. They have a great running game. They have a great passing game because they have Patrick Mahomes. But they also have Rashee Rice. Now they added Marquise Brown, who's not going to be playing for the first few weeks. We don't know exactly how long, but he could be potentially really good as well. They also added Xavier Worthy, who's just really fast and has some potential in the receiving game as well. So we see the Chiefs, like they're in the AFC with the Bengals. So like the Chiefs are like kind of a juggernaut of a team to get through. So, looking at the Bengals, I think they have a decent amount of work and a lot of groundwork that needs to be laid out for them to make a Super Bowl push. And, knowing that Joe Burrow is one of the only guys in the AFC that has the potential of actually beating Patrick Mahomes to make it to the Super Bowl, like that's very important. This team has some work they need to do. And, the first thing that can be checked off, I think, is signing Jamar Chase. So that needs to be done. But beyond that, invest in the running game, invest in their defense and offensive line. And yeah, get the ball to T. Higgins more because he's also a playmaker. Like he's not like he has the potential to be a wide receiver one on some other teams in the NFL.
You mentioned a bunch of AFC threats to the Chiefs, and obviously they're going for the three-peat this year. The one name that kept coming up in that Bengals talk just now was Joe Mixon and how much he meant to that offense in the running game. Chase Brown is somebody that, for me, I've been taking him in a lot of mock drafts, and I might end up taking him. My fantasy draft is tonight, but he's still unproven, like Hunter said. So it's going to be big shoes to fill for him. And obviously they signed Zach Moss away from the Bills. So he brings a little bit of experience to that backfield as well. So we'll see again what that running back room looks like. But sticking with Joe Mixon, if you want to talk about AFC threats, he joined the Houston Texans this offseason. And they're a team that to me is very interesting. I want to talk about them for a couple minutes. Just their offense alone, we'll get into that first. Starting with quarterback down, CJ Stroud was, in my opinion, the most impressive rookie last year. Obviously at Ohio State, and a lot of people are viewing him already as one of the best dynasty quarterbacks from a fantasy perspective already. And the potential that he has now with all these weapons around him is insane. And I think the Texans are going to be a team to definitely watch this year. Continuing with their offense, so around Stroud, again, they have Mixon and Dameon Pierce in their backfield, and their receiving core, maybe if not the best receiving core in the NFL. They added Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and even their backups too. They have a lot of depth at the position with Robert Woods, John Mechie III, and Xavier Hutchinson, and even tight end too. A lot of depth at that position. Dalton Schultz is a veteran tight end who's been proven to succeed in the NFL. Has done well with the Cowboys previously, has had some good seasons this year, obviously aging a little bit, but drafted a very impressive tight end in Cade Stover as well, and have Brevin Jordan backing him up. So they're a team that I look at. And then even on defense, Will Anderson, Azeez Al-Shire, and linebacker, Derek Stingley. They're just an impressive team all around. So your thoughts on the Texans, and could this be the year that they potentially make a push towards that Super Bowl?
Yeah, they're absolutely stacked. Like from top to bottom, offense and defense, mainly offense. I mean, I guess we'll just start with Stroud himself. Offensive Rookie of the Year wasn't even up for debate, even though Puka Nacua broke several records too, which is crazy the difference between the two of them. like you said, probably the best receiving core in the league, where Tank Dell is his third best receiver. He was a rookie with Stroud last year. He missed a few games due to injury, but freakishly fast, quick, and he's probably the best. I mean, he's definitely the best wide receiver 3 in the league. And then you got Nico Collins, who broke out last year after a few years of just kind of being not anyone like too crazy. And then off-season addition, Stephon Diggs, who has been a top 10 receiver for God knows how many years now. With the Vikings and then the Bills. Last year with the Bills wasn't his best, but I'm sure that when he's with Stroud, he'll pick it up a bit. But at the same time, with the amount of targets to go around, it's iffy there. But still, I still think he'll be impressive. On the defensive side, let's go with the other rookie of the year. Defensive rookie of the year is Will Anderson Jr. I've known him very well from Alabama. He is going to be awesome. I'd say at least 13, 14 sacks for him on the year. Something like that. He's just a super fast edge rusher. And then they also got another offseason addition, and Daniil Hunter from the Vikings, for the other side of the edge, and he's a Pro Bowler himself. So they're set in that area. Really in the secondary, two guys that stick out to me are Derek Stingley and Jalen Petrie, two guys that are under like 26, 27 years old or so. They might even be younger than that. And they've already emerged as some of the best players at their position. Now, when it comes to them as a team overall and going into the playoffs, I say they win the division, win the AFC South. And when I made my like predictions, I guess yesterday, I said that they would be the 3 seed with the Ravens as the 1, Chiefs as the 2, but they would make the conference championship after beating the Chiefs in the divisional round. Now, I've said this kind of thing before against the Chiefs, and it's definitely backfired on me because you can't really play against Mahomes in the playoffs. Guys, 3 rings and 7 seasons. Like, ridiculous. But yeah, I definitely see them making the conference championship. At least they win a playoff game for sure.
Yeah, to add on to what Hunter said, I'm going to be a little more conservative, against the guy who's 15-3 overall record in the playoffs, which is Patrick Mahomes. I'm going to say the Texans don't beat the Chiefs, but they are a scary team to go up against. I mean, why don't we just take last year? They beat the Cleveland Browns in the playoffs, and they're like considered one of the best defenses in the league. And CJ Stroud is a rookie quarterback going up against, I wouldn't say the Cleveland Browns were one of the best teams in the AFC. They actually were one of the best, but no one thought they were going to make the playoffs in the beginning of the year. Then you throw in Joe Flacco, and all of a sudden they're 12-5 and in the playoffs, like ready to go. CJ Stroud beat them no problem. Then he went up against the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson. They ended up losing that game, but I think, the Baltimore Ravens have one of the best defenses in the league too, and CJ Stroud kind of tore them up a little bit. So it's kind of interesting to see how, CJ Stroud is making such a big impact as a rookie already. And you put him up against 2 of the best defenses in the league, and he actually like plays a good game. Like, this is a guy that's going to potentially win a Super Bowl in the next few years. And now you add in Stephon Diggs, you have the emerging Nico Collins and the emerging Tank Dell. Like, that is the best wide receiver room in the league right now. I used to say that it was the Minnesota Vikings, but it's not them anymore. Not even close. And again with the Texans, yeah, they added Danielle Hunter to that defense, and he's a Pro Bowler. Like, that guy is a stud. Like, he was on the Vikings. He's not anymore, but he's a stud. This team is, they quickly went from the rebuilding stage to we are going to make a playoffs and a potential Super Bowl run stage. So, they are definitely a team you need to watch out for. I think people are kind of sleeping on them potentially. I think everyone talks about your Buffalo Bills, your Kansas City Chiefs, your Cincinnati Bengals. But what about CJ Stroud? Like, that guy, once he gets one taste of making the Super Bowl, like, and potentially jumping the hurdle of Patrick Mahomes, I think he's not going to be stopped after that. I think this is a message to Josh Allen, to Lamar Jackson, start stepping up your game.
There you go. You heard it there. CJ Stroud, obviously only 22 years old, and I agree with both of your points on the Texans this year. I think personally I'm very high on them. I think that they could go to that AFC Championship game. Obviously, if there's anything we learned from last year, it's don't bet against Patrick Mahomes. And if you remember, he did not have a great year last year, at least a great regular season to start. But it didn't matter because even with the depleted wide receiver room, and this year, again, they have a little bit more of a fun wide receiver room with Xavier Worthy, and Hollywood Brown is going to miss a few games, but still, the Chiefs are still knocking on the door, and now they're going for the three-peat. But just going back to Joe Mixon, I mean, this is a guy, I think you talk about the wide receiver room for the Texans, which is obviously impressive. Stephon Diggs is someone that he's proven. Mark, as a Vikings fan, Minnesota Miracle and obviously what he did with the Bills and Josh Allen. Obviously, he adds a lot to that offense. Yeah, I mean, he adds a lot to that offense as well. CJ Stroud still only being 22 years old, but he has these weapons and resources around him. Nico Collins emerging as a star, and then Tank Dell, who I love Tank Dell. I'm a huge fan of Tank Dell. But I think going back to Joe Mixon, I mean, this is a guy who had 1,000 rushing yards last season, 9 touchdowns. So, and they have Dalton Schultz too at tight end. So, I mean, really, you could double team anyone on that team, but it won't really matter because there's somebody else probably open on every snap. And they're just such a powerful offense that I think it's going to be really tough to beat them. So I agree with your point. Josh Allen, Lamar, step it up because it's going to be really, really tough when you see the Texans on the schedule. Hunter went into a little bit of his predictions with the Texans. So I think we'll take this opportunity to transition and go into some rankings. So we're talking about the AFC, so let's stay there right now. Your guys' thoughts on just who you expect to see come out of the AFC. We mentioned, obviously, a little bit of the Ravens, the Bills, talked about the Bengals, talked about the Texans, and obviously there's the Chiefs. So just we can go division by division or talk about the conference itself. What do you expect to see? We'll start with the AFC. Who do you think will be the surprise teams to watch out for this year? And also, who do you think will be the contenders that are looking to take that title away from the Chiefs?
Yeah, so one division you didn't mention was the AFC East.
Yep.
Very up for grab as a new team is in the mix in the New York Jets, which is crazy to say because they haven't made the playoffs since I was 10 years old.
That is a team to watch out for, the Jets.
Their defense is top 3 in the league. And obviously getting Aaron Rodgers last year, we thought that they would make a playoff push then, but obviously got hurt 4 snaps into the game. Now, and I'm knocking on wood that doesn't happen again. He should be good to go for this season. Hopefully a full healthy season would definitely pretend. I think that really could give them double-digit wins. I think they could go 10-7 or 11-6. And in that division, you also have the Bills and the Dolphins. I don't think the Patriots are going to make it. I think they're probably going to be one of the worst teams in the league this season. Regarding the Bills and the Dolphins, I was super high on the Dolphins last year, and they didn't really disappoint. Their offense was one of the best, if not like the best in the league in terms of just explosiveness with Devin A-Chain and Raheem Mostert, and Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Tua Tagovailoa, who led the league in passing yards and passing touchdowns. I think they might be able to win the division this year. And I think the Jets could get in second. Now, the Bills, everyone's always high on the Bills because of Josh Allen, but he's got no receivers really this year. And I honestly could see them going like 9-8 and just missing the playoffs. Like that 7th spot in the playoffs, that 3rd wildcard spot. I don't think they can get it. AFC North, typical Ravens, I think, win it. Then it gets a little complicated, but I think now that Burrow's back and healthy, I think he could definitely get them to 10 wins or so. That's, of course, if Jamar is good to go. Browns, they might just miss the cut. I'd say they go 8-9, 9-8, somewhere in that area. Crazy good defense, but that offense obviously needs some work. Nick Chubb is not fully healthy yet after suffering that gruesome leg injury in week 2 of last season. And I don't know if Jerome Ford is there yet to be. I mean, he did impress last season, but I don't know if he's there yet. Steelers, they always go 9-8 or 8-9, so I think just putting him there without any explanation is fine for Mike Tomlin. He's never had a losing season, so I feel like 9-8 would be good. What else? AFC South, I'd say Texans win it easily, but I could see the Colts taking that 7th playoff spot from the Bills. I'd say they also go like a 10-7 record. I think Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman Jr. is a crazy trio. And they also got some dudes on defense, including like DeForest Buckner and Kenny Moore. AFC West, I mean, come on. It's just the Chiefs. They're in it. Yeah, the Chargers aren't going to make it. I like Jim Harbaugh, but they might get second in the division. And when I say second, like they go like 8-9 or something like that. Like the rest of the division is toast.
Hunter touched on the Dolphins a little bit, and I'm gonna have to say I don't really think they impressed me that much last season. They were pretty explosive against every team that had a losing record. And then as soon as they went up against a team that had a winning record, they did not look like the same team. They were total opposite. They actually looked like one of the worst teams in the AFC. Like, did they have a winning record against any? I mean, not a winning record. Did they have any wins against a winning record team last year? Like,
I
I'm
honestly forgot about that stat category, and I think they might have had one.
like,
Yeah.
I think this is a team that actually has a lot to prove. They make the playoffs and they only put up what, 7 points against the Chiefs. Now I get the Chiefs are like the AFC's like top team and gonna be the pick to win the Super Bowl, but like, Tyreek Hill is talking up a big game about the Dolphins, like, oh, we look better on paper than the Chiefs. Like, no, you don't. Like maybe you did last year, but you certainly don't this year. So
You think
On
that's personal
paper,
to the Chiefs? Knowing Tyreek's history with Kansas City, do you think that's a personal statement to the Chiefs, or do you actually believe that he thinks that they have a better all-around team than Kansas?
I think it was personal, and I
Yeah.
also think he actually meant that. I think both. Dolphins to me actually have a lot to prove. I think Hunter was right on the money with the Bills. This is a team that could potentially miss the playoffs or just make it. Pittsburgh Steelers, I think this is the year where we see them completely fall apart, in my opinion. Like, you got Russell Wilson as your starting quarterback. Personally, I think they should have went with Justin Fields. I kind of like Justin Fields because I had DJ Moore on my fantasy team last year, and DJ Moore had what, just under 1,400 receiving yards. Like, and DJ Moore did that with with Justin Fields. Like, that's impressive. New England Patriots, yeah, they're gonna go 1-15 this year. I don't know. The Jets, however, I think besides the Kansas City Chiefs, I mean, if Aaron Rodgers, if we watch him in the first game and he looks like the Aaron Rodgers of, his prime time, like, I think I might already say they're going to make the Super Bowl potentially. They have some offensive weapons on that team, not just players, weapons like Brees Hall, Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson has had, two 1,000-yard receiving years with Zach Wilson. What's he going to do with Aaron Rodgers if Aaron Rodgers actually stays healthy? Like, that is yet to be determined. Baltimore Ravens, I think they'll do exactly what they did last year. 13-4, 12-5. This is just a really good team. Raiders, yeah, they'll either go 9-8 or 8-9. Only two really good players. Beyond that, there's nothing else. Kansas City Chiefs, I think they're going to potentially win the Super. No, I think they will win the Super Bowl again this year. Patrick Mahomes has got all the momentum, and he's not going to have Kadarius Toney dropping the ball on him this year 18 million times or lining up in the neutral zone. I laughed watching that, but I'm sure it wasn't that funny for Patrick Mahomes.
It was funny for us Giants fans, though.
Yeah. Yes. Looking at the Colts, I mean, if Anthony Richardson plays anything like he did last year for an entire season, I could see them potentially going like 10-7 or 11-6. Looking at the Cleveland Browns, I don't think, Joe Flacco's not playing this year because they just restructured Deshaun Watson's contract. Is that what it was? I think they restructured it,
yeah.
right? And he's getting paid a lot of money.
Flacco's actually the backup for Anthony Richardson on the Colts now. He left the Browns. I don't even know if they offered him.
That's wild. They should have extended Joe Flacco.
Especially after last year's playoffs, and like they wouldn't have even been there if it weren't for him. So yeah, I agree with you.
Tennessee Titans, they're not doing anything. Let's just move on from them. And then the Denver Broncos, yeah, they got Bo Nix and they got guys like Courtland Sutton, but I don't know. Like, do we really expect them to make a playoff push? And then Texans, they're going to win their division easily, I think. So yeah, that's it for the AFC.
Just want to touch on like two surprise teams for the AFC before we jump over to the NFC. You both mentioned them, but first I'll start with, pains me to say it, but the New York Jets. I mean, it's tough to say as a Giant fan, but they're just so good on paper. What it's going to come down to is if they can stay healthy. I'm a big fan of Rodgers just in general, but obviously an aging quarterback. He had a lot of drama off the field. If you remember, he held out of OTAs to take a trip to Egypt. I don't like their coaching. I'm not a big Robert Saleh guy. not a big Nathaniel Hackett guy either, but on paper, this is a great team. And I think Rodgers will not only play quarterback, but he'll coach. It's sort of like a LeBron James situation here. What it will come down to is if he can get past the fourth snap. Coming off a Achilles tear is obviously not great. I know this again as a Giant fan. The MetLife turf is concerning to me, both with contact injuries and non-contact injuries. So,
MetLife turf.
it's very concerning. But assuming this team stays healthy, Rodgers, Brees Hall, I think, Mark, I know how much you love Brees Hall, but I mean, unbelievable if you look at what he did last year with a worse offensive line and without Aaron Rodgers. And with that being said, Garrett Wilson as well. I mean, every year he's been consistent without Aaron Rodgers. I mean, this guy's had like multiple different quarterbacks. We're talking about Zach Wilson. He had Mike White, I think, at one point, but now he finally has the best quarterback of his professional career. They add Mike Williams to the mix as well. Tyler Conklin, I think, is a solid tight end all around. I mean, this is a great offense. I mean, there's no debating that. And Tyrod Taylor, I think, is a great backup as well for Rodgers. I mentioned it before. Their improved offensive line is something to definitely look out for. Tyron Smith is unbelievable. Elijah Vera Tucker, he was injured last year. I think he got injured. I remember, I think it was later in the season, but he was a big loss to that offense. They added Morgan Moses from the Ravens as well. I mean, this is a team like if everyone stays healthy, I'll bang the drum for them. I'll say that they're going to be a team that definitely will have double-digit wins. And then moving over to the defense for them, I mean, they're a great defense. We'll start it off with Sauce Gardner, Quentin Williams. I mean, those two guys alone are one of the best at their position. Linebackers, CJ Mosley. The one thing I'm looking out for is Hassan Reddick. If you guys remember, coming off the edge, they got him from the Eagles earlier this offseason. He is already wanting out of New York, or he wants a new contract or wants a trade or something. A little bit of a red flag, a little bit of a concern for me. Second surprise team for me, and there really is a surprise team for me, is the Indianapolis Colts. I know both of you touched on them. Anthony Richardson, I was very impressed by him before he got injured. Same thing. I hope he can stay healthy. People forget Jonathan Taylor is still there. Michael Pittman is still there. Is very underrated. Josh Downs, I think, needs more love. I think he's going to be really good. And then also they added Donnie Mitchell into the mix too. I mean, that receiving core, very young, but I think has a lot of potential. And then you can't talk about their offense and not talk about the offensive line. Quentin Nelson, Will Fries. I mean, they're a really good team all around. And then even their defense too. They got some playmakers on their defensive side too. So Jets, I think, will definitely win the AFC East, in my opinion. The Colts, I think, I forgot who said it. I think Mark or maybe Hunter, you said it, but I think the Colts could win 11 games. And I really believe that. I think that they're a young team, but have a lot of star potential. So for me, the Jets and the Colts are teams that I'm watching out for. Obviously, the Ravens, Bills, Chiefs, Texans, Bengals. Jets could be definitely a contender, and the Colts could definitely make the playoffs this year, in my opinion.
I'm really excited for the Monday night game. I know they're going up against the 49ers, and if I had to put my money on it, I would say the 49ers are going to win the game. But, this could potentially be one of the best Monday night games we see in a very long time, or it could be one of the worst, depending on how Aaron Rodgers plays.
Yeah, I say we jump over to the NFC. I would start it with the NFC East and my New York Giants, but I actually want to touch on the NFC North first. This division has the Bears, the Lions, the Packers, and the Vikings. I mean, this really is, Mark. I'll start it with you because I know you're a Vikings fan, but this is really, in my opinion, the AFC is wide open. There's a lot of contenders. The NFC, we obviously talk about the 49ers being like the main contender, the team that everyone's going to pick to go to the Super Bowl. But I think if there's another team and it's not the 49ers, it'll either be the Eagles or it'll be one of these teams in the NFC North, because the Bears, obviously a younger team, but they have, I mean, I just look at their offense. I mean, Caleb Williams being the first overall pick, DeAndre Swift, and then obviously their receiving game with DJ Moore, Keenan Allen is a big addition, Roma Dunze, and then Cole Kmet. The Lions obviously were a team last year. I'm a big fan of them. I love Dan Campbell. I think he's a great head coach. And then I think, you just add that offense too, offense and defense, because Aiden Hutchinson on the defensive side, but their offense with Jared Goff, who I love as a backup quarterback in fantasy, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, and then obviously their receiving core with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta is just unbelievable. But I think the Lions will be a fun team, and then you add the Packers and Vikings in there as well. So Mark, I'll start with you because I know your Vikings are in the NFC North, but just who do you expect to see come out of the North, and what do you think about some of the talent there?
I want to say the Vikings are going to come out of the North, but we all know they're not. even if JJ McCarthy was playing this year, the NFC North is kind of, you got Green Bay and Detroit. So it's like those are also two teams that I think have the potential to beat the 49ers in the NFC. I mean, we almost saw it last year in the NFC Championship with the Lions and the 49ers. Like, I think had the Lions continued to run the ball against the 49ers, because I don't know, the 49ers rush defense in that game just wasn't looking so good, I think they would have won that game. But, instead you see Dan Campbell being like, all right, now we're going to throw the ball. And I think the 49ers have a better secondary than they do of a rush defense. Like, I don't think anyone says they have the best secondary or the best rush defense. I just think all around they're very good. And they're very good at just locking teams down when push comes to shove. Looking at the Green Bay Packers, though, I mean, they steamrolled over the Cowboys. Cowboys had arguably one of the best regular season performances. This is a team that's either going to push right through the NFC or they're going to collapse, and collapse is what happened in Dallas. I mean, if you look at Green Bay, they just added Josh Jacobs. Jordan Love is emerging. They have a very solid defense. Wide receivers like Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, Jaden Reed. Like, that's a
Dontavian Wicks too. Don't sleep on Dontavian Wicks. I love him.
Yeah, I mean, like, not the best wide receiver core. Are they also, who's their tight end again? Is it Tucker Kraft?
Luke Musgrave.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But yeah, he's a solid tight end too. All can potentially make a play on any team, especially when Jordan Love is throwing you the ball. With the NFC North, hard to say who's going to come out of that division. And you also got the Chicago Bears too, like Adam touched on. This is a team that didn't really have a lot of weapons to now they just added DeAndre Swift from Philadelphia Eagles, which, I mean, yeah, they just add Saquon Barkley, so I guess it's reasonable to let him go. You got Keenan Allen and Roma Dunze. You had DJ Moore already. Like, now, again, another team that potentially has one of the best receiving cores in the league. So, and you got Cole Kmet as a tight end, who's very solid as well. Like, the NFC is ready to, I know the AFC is considered to have like most of the best teams in the league, but like, man, like the NFC is just a dark horse with teams. They're starting to become very comparable to the AFC now, especially with quarterback play. And, Jared Goff is really good. You still got guys like Matt Stafford. Brock Purdy is starting to emerge. Sam Darnold. No, I'm kidding. I think, I was saying that the 49ers are potentially just going to be the team. But, the 49ers are kind of in their window right now where, like, they have all the talent. Like, they're the team that needs to win a Super Bowl now. I think every other team, you could say, like, they're kind of still building up to it. Maybe you could put the Cowboys in that category too, with all the weapons they got on offensive defense. But like, like the Detroit Lions are still a very young team, like with all the weapons they have. So they still have a lot of time to like invest in any aspect of their team. And same thing with the Green Bay Packers too. Ton of young talent on that team as well. And everyone's acting like Josh Jacobs is so old. He's only 26 years old. Like, what are we doing here? Like, he's not old. Like, he's in his mid-20s.
And he led the league in rushing touchdowns 2 seasons ago too. Like, people forget because he was injured and he was on the Raiders offense. We just touched on the Raiders when we were over on the AFC. Like, Josh Jacobs is still elite if he's in the right offense, if he's in the right, situation. I think he'll be really good for this team. But
huge sleeper fantasy pick, but yeah, like that team is very young too in the Green Bay Packers. Chicago Bears. I know Keenan Allen is like 40 years old. No, he's not that old, but like he's kind of old. But like,
prone though. He's injured.
He's shown he has big play potential last year, and Roma Dunze is a top draft prospect alongside Caleb Williams, and DJ Moore has shown to have big play potential as well with Justin Fields. So who knows what he's doing with Caleb Williams this year?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll break down all the NFC, starting with, I guess, the NFC East, since we're on the topic. So I don't remember how many years it's been, but it's around 24, 25 years of where there's never been a repeat champion in the NFC East, meaning back to back. I think that's going to stay the same this year, as I think the Eagles are going to win it over the Cowboys, Raiders, not the Cowboys, Giants, and Commanders. They started off like 11-1 or something like that, and then they just lost every game after. Like something didn't work. I know Hurts and Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni, the head coach, they had a relationship that was not great. They refused to like say it like on like camera. It was not great, but they've kind of used every other synonym around it. But hopefully that's all repaired because I mean you got Saquon Barkley now. Like probably the biggest thing in the whole offseason was him going from the 32nd best offensive line to a top 3 offensive line. And he's doing all this amazing stuff, 2-time Pro Bowler, constant over 1,000 yards rushing with a horrible offensive line. Now that he's got 3 Pro Bowlers, it would have been 4 if Kelsey was there on his O-line alone. That's good stuff. That's really good stuff. And then you got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, who's probably, in terms of duos alone, they're either 1 or 2 between Tyreek and Waddle. So I think they're really perfect on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, they have some young talent, especially with guys like Jalen Carter, defensive tackle, who was runner-up for Defensive Rookie of the Year last year. I think he'll show even more improvement. Their secondary was a big, big, big issue last season towards the end. And I don't know how much they've really revamped it this offseason. That could trouble them come the NFC Championship or NFC Divisional, but that's just inciting that they will actually make it that far. They'll win a playoff game, or they might even get, well, they're not going to get a first round bye. I don't think they're going to be the number 1 overall seed in the NFC. So that's the Eagles. Cowboys, yikes. What a dumpster fire that is.
Dak Prescott, best quarterback in the playoffs, right?
All right. So Dak, CD, Micah. Big 3. And you got Jerry Jones, the owner slash GM, who might be like
Jerry Jones.
And in sports media, you're not supposed to show like bias or hatred or whatever towards a franchise or whatever. But Jerry Jones sucks as a GM. Like it's as simple as that.
Hey,
Like,
this is our podcast. You can say whatever you want.
I know, yeah.
That's the beauty of it.
That's why, yeah.
That's the beauty of it. I'm wearing a Giants hat right now, and I can't agree with you more.
We
Yeah,
need to spark some controversy on this podcast.
Let's go.
So go all
Episode
in.
1, we're getting right into it.
Headline. I mean,
Just gotta say, this has been an amazing episode so far.
Right? Yeah, I love this. This is awesome. Yeah. But Jerry Jones, you get a guy who finished like top 2 in fantasy and just yards, touchdowns in general on your team as a wide receiver under like 26 years old or so. And he needs a new contract. Unlike Jamar, he had 1 year left on his deal, which means that he had to really make a move. Yeah. And Jerry's like, oh, the urgency was not there. It's just, and then there wasn't anything going on with Micah and Dak's still in the mix. Like, it's just a total dumpster fire over there. I think they missed the playoffs. Just miss it. It's so bad over there.
And the Cowboys. I just gotta add in, like, I really thought they were gonna make an off-season push for like a running back.
Okay.
This year, and what are they doing? You have guys like Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, like level of talent on the free agency. What do? They let those 2 go and they sign Ezekiel Elliott. Like, Ezekiel Elliott's like, I know he was great a couple of years ago, but like, are we gonna like invest in him now? Like when you're trying to make a Super Bowl push? Like Jerry Jones is sitting here, he's like, yeah, there's no one on this planet of Earth that can identify talent as well as I can. Well, guess what? You had 2 ultra-level talent running backs on the free agency, and where did they go? They went to 2 teams that, you know, 1 that you're competing against in the NFC, and 2 to the AFC. Like, why are we letting them go?
I just want to add real quick on the Cowboys, because I'll forget to say it later before we move on to other teams. It's worth noting this. I'm looking at their 2025 free agents. I don't know if I've been talking about this for a while with both of you, I'm sure, but I don't know if either of you've seen this on Spot Track, but it's like their entire team is up for free agency. And with Jerry Jones not showing any urgency, I don't know what their team is going to look like next year, because I'll just name a few. It would take me forever to go through all of them, but their entire quarterback room is going to be a free agent next year. Dak Prescott, Cooper Rush, Trey Lance. Then you have Brandon Cooks. They did re-sign CeeDee Lamb. Okay, he's the best fantasy wide receiver this year. He's one of the best receivers in the league. But Zach Martin's going to be a free agent. You have DeMarcus Lawrence who's going to be a free agent. Eric Kendricks, who they signed this offseason, is going to be a free agent. Their punter is going to be a free agent. Brian Anger. Linval Joseph is going to be a free agent. Zeke is going to be a free agent. I mean, Rico Dowdle's a free agent. I mean, they don't have, I know they're America's team and they have a lot of money, but do they have a lot of money to sign their entire team and more, like, and other free agents? Because you want to add depth from other teams. Like, in my opinion, they were the perfect fit for Derrick Henry. And I'm very happy that he's on the Ravens. So let me set that straight real quick. Derrick Henry, I actually when I was interning at SiriusXM, we had him on our show, and he called in and he said this clip is on Twitter that the Cowboys never reached out. Jerry Jones never reached out, and that he generally thought about going there. He wanted to go there. He trains in the offseason in Dallas. I think he's from that area, or he at least has a house there. He would
He's
have
from
been the perfect fit.
he might
Yeah,
be
he would have
from.
been the perfect fit there.
Yeah, here's the thing, and I'm quoting this right here. All right, Jerry Jones, after they got dismantled by the Packers, which was hilarious, he said we're going to be all in
Yep.
on the offseason. They drafted garbage in terms of just team needs. Like they got two good offensive linemen, which is great, but they needed running backs and they needed another receiver, and it was just terrible. And this offseason free agency, they didn't get anybody. So that all-in thing meant nothing. NFC East. You heard my stance on the Eagles and the Cowboys. Giants, I'd say like 6-11 or so. Something like that. 5-12, 6-11, 7-10. They're not getting 8 wins, in my opinion. They just don't have enough talent. They have some dudes like all around. I think Daniel Jones is the biggest setback here. And I feel like year after year, it's been like, oh, this is his last year. He's done after this. Like, if he doesn't do this, it's over. It's over. And that's probably happened for the last 3 seasons. Wan'Dale Robinson is super underrated. CeeDee Lamb said that he was like a sneaky good wide receiver. I'd say Jalen Hyatt, their rookie from last year, is really, really talented. However, this was a strange decision. So I went to training camp for Giants and preseason, and he was clearly like the star there, like not even a question. But when it came to the season, he only played like 20% of the snaps, and he led the team. He would have led the league in yards per like catch, but he didn't have the minimum like to do it. Like he needed like 30 receptions or so, and he didn't do it because they barely played him. Their defense, I thought their defense last year was solid, and I think it's even more solid this year, which I think that'll really help them in the win totals. Singletary going with that offensive line, I wish him luck. It's
They did improve their O-line this year, which I think is worth noting as well. I don't know until they start playing how much that will impact their offense, because their offense was atrocious last year. And even as a Giant fan, I'm not disagreeing with anything you just said.
Yeah.
I have no faith in Daniel Jones and that just all-around team. I do think their defense will be, I think they have the potential to be top 5, especially with Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence. Their secondary scares me a little bit, but linebackers, I know you like Micah McFadden. Like, I do like that defense a lot. Bobby Okereke. The offensive line, John Runyon, Jermaine Illuminor, Greg Van Roten, I think they are improved. Andrew Thomas is really good on the left side. So
yeah.
as long as they can stay healthy. Again, I
How
keep
about that
saying
right
healthy,
side?
but the right side, yeah, well, Evan Neal's not going to play this year. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the Giants potentially have a top 5 rush defense.
That I'll agree on. Yeah, I
Not
wouldn't say.
not an
Yeah.
overall defense, like because
Their secondary is terrible.
as soon as the teams are like, all right, we just need to throw the ball against these guys, like the rush defense means nothing. Like, yeah, they might get a few sacks, but like if you're going up against like a San Francisco 49er, like that's an extreme example. But like let's even take like the Chicago Bears or the
I'd
Atlanta
go
Falcons. Like
I'd go like Rams, because you have Puka and
yeah,
you have Cooper Cup. I mean, they could stop Kyron, but they're not going to be able to stop those
even
guys in the
Tampa
passing game.
Bay. Like
Yeah,
I mean,
Evans and Godwin. Yeah,
you could potentially throw the Washington Commanders in that mix now because now they got Jaden Daniels like slinging the ball. These are all teams that are ready to start throwing the ball on teams, and like, you know, if you got a good rush defense, like yeah, that might be good against guys like, I don't know, like Christian McCaffrey, but like Christian McCaffrey's he's a
Nah,
stud.
yeah, he's still wrong.
uh, even if you're like going up against the Detroit Lions, where one of their strongest assets is running, like you still have to stop Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery like consistently.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like
They have a lot of work. They have a lot of work.
The Giants have a lot of work ahead of them. I know they won the Super Bowl like 10 plus years ago, which like doesn't seem like it's too long ago, but like, now we're in a
New era.
era,
When
like
we
complete new
started at
team.
camp, when we started at camp in 2012 was the last time they won the Super Bowl.
How about that?
There you go.
Since we started on the NFC North, I'll end on it. So I'll do the other two divisions. NFC South. I think the Falcons have this one in the books. Like they have a really good team. They really, really revamped their roster this offseason by giving Terrell a new contract. That was probably like a few days ago. And signing Jesse Bates. Like, come on now. That's incredible. Like Jesse Bates was the number one safety last season. Adding Kirk Cousins was huge. Huge. They really needed a QB. That was like the main thing holding him back. I think Drake London is poised for a real breakout year. Not like an amazing year, but I think he'll break out. Kyle Pitts is always he's always an interesting pick for fantasy football players.
Quick question. Drake London plus or minus 1,100 receiving yards. Do you think he goes over or under?
Oh, that's a good question.
What do you think?
Over.
Over?
Yeah, but like not by much.
Do you think he gets in the range of 1,250 receiving yards like Nico Collins' breakout year last year? I think his year was 1,297 last year.
He was also like the main wide receiver there, like because Tank early. So nah, I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
The Falcons, clear cut NFC South champs for me. NFC West, it's not even close. It's gonna be the Niners. I don't even think another team gets close to 10 wins. I'd say the Rams go 9-8, Seahawks 8-9 or so, and the Cardinals maybe like 5-12 or 6-11 or something like that. Because Marvin Harrison Jr. is the real deal. Like he's awesome. Like he was sick at Ohio State, and I could see him only growing more in the NFL on a week by week basis. And having a guy like Kyler, who's an above average quarterback, I guess you could say, I think that would really help him in the first year of his career. And then we have the NFC North, what we started with.
Yep.
It's a fun division. This is the most fun division in all of football, without a doubt, in my opinion. Let's start with last year's champion there. Detroit Lions, they only got better. Amon-Ra signing a new deal is huge. Gibbs is now going to be the lead back with Montgomery. As like it's interesting. They kind of got like in 2017, Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara both made the Pro Bowl because one of them, both on the Saints, one of them did all the carries, and the other was Mark Ingram, and the other was kind of like the receiving back, which was Kamara, and this is Jahmyr Gibbs now. And it worked really well last year. Gibbs made the Pro Bowl. I don't think Montgomery did, but there's a decent chance I could see both of them potentially making it again. And that's just their rushing attack. A lot of that has to do with their offensive line, which is led by Penei Sewell, who I've mentioned much earlier in the show.
I just want to say real quick on the Lions, and I'll let you finish the North. Sure. Ben Johnson coming back as their coordinator is huge because he was supposed to be hired as a head coach. Like he was rumored to go somewhere, but he denied that and said, I'm coming back to the Lions and I'm going to help this team win a Super Bowl. And that is, in my opinion, that's huge as well. And I don't think that is talked about enough either because, I mean, they have a great offense, and I know you're breaking it down right now, but it all starts with him, and I like him a lot. I actually thought he would have been a head coach this offseason.
I'm really glad you mentioned it because I totally forgot about it. I remember like week 13, I said to myself, "Oh, this guy's definitely gonna be a head coach next season."
Yeah, I agree.
I thought he was so sick, and I thought he was gonna go to the Chargers. I really did, but then he said he wanted to stay, which I really respect because I do see the Lions. They are my team to win the NFC. I think they're going to lose the Super Bowl to the Ravens. That's just my very early prediction. Well, it's not very early. Okay. It's not very early now. It's 2 days from now is when the season starts. Yeah, Lions, I think they have it in the bag. But there's two other teams that I think will make the playoffs in that division. 2 of the 3 wildcard spots will be taken by NFC North teams, Packers and the Bears. So Packers, definitely one of the more exciting teams one of the teams I'm more excited to watch this season. Same with the Bears too. Jordan Love really balled out, and is kind of his first year as like a main starter. He showed a ton of promise. He got a new deal. Literally played like 15 games and became like the richest QB ever, or something like that. Like, and he won a playoff game. He dominated a playoff game against the Cowboys.
I want to say though, the Giants did. Tommy DeVito beat him on Monday night.
Yeah, that's true.
No,
That's
I know.
true.
No, I agree with you though. They're a young team. They're a fun team.
Yes, exactly. They are a
Yeah.
very young team. They were the youngest team last season,
Yep.
and they're
I
still
think
young.
they are again this year.
They're up there, but
Yeah.
Josh Jacobs, he's still like I think like 26, 27. That was a huge addition. It was 2 years ago, as you mentioned, he was an all-pro, led the league in rushing. And do I think it's going to happen again with the Packers? No, but I think he'll be much, much better than he was last season. And defensively, you got some guys in there too, like Jair Alexander, and that's who's Pro Bowler at least a couple times now. And then you got kind of in the linebacker edge areas, Rashawn Gary, who broke out last season as one of the best players at his position. I think he'll only continue to grow. So Packers, I'm really high on. I'm also really high on the Bears. I think the Caleb Williams draft decision, it was an obvious one. They kind of needed a QB. Fields was decent, but I don't think he cut it, as we now know. I watched Caleb Williams at USC and Oklahoma, and he's a dog. Like, he's a beast. Like, he could throw on the run better than most guys I know.
Sure.
He's good at evading like pocket and throw downfield. He's accurate at all three levels, and he has the receivers to do it. Keenan Allen, tremendous offseason addition. Guy is one of the most consistent receivers in the league for the last decade. I know he's had some injury issues in the past, but when he's healthy, you're locked. Like, you're good. And you got DJ Moore, who in his first season with the Bears, he was amazing. 1,200 yards or whatever Mark said. Maybe 1,400. That'll only, I mean, it's kind of like the Texans, right? I mean, like, you got, and then Rome Odunze too. You got three great receivers that you got to spread the ball around. Like, I don't think any of them is going to get like 1,400 yards, but I don't think any of them are going to get less than 800, which is incredible. I don't think the Bears have ever had a 4,000-yard passer, and that could happen in Caleb Williams' rookie season. So I'm super pumped about the Bears. Getting DeAndre Swift really helps too. He was great with the Eagles last season. So I think they're really set offensively. Defensively, you got Jalen Johnson as a corner, who's probably the most underrated player in the entire league. Like, literally Pro Bowler last year and didn't make the NFL top 100, which blew my mind because I would have probably put him as like 70 or something like that. Like, he would have made it a couple episodes in because they only did like 10 per episode. Then you got Montez Sweat off the edge, who's one of the best edge rushers in the league. I'd say top 10-ish, somewhere in that area. So I definitely would rather I think their offense is better than their defense, but their defense could definitely make some noise. And I could see them as a cohesive unit going 10-7 or so and getting like that 6th or 7th spot in the NFC. Then we have the Minnesota Vikings. As I said, I just named 3 teams in the division alone that will make the playoffs. So the Vikings have some tough competition. They play those teams 6 times during the season, and I don't even know if they're going to win 2 of them. Now, the Vikings aren't a bad team really by any means, but the quarterback issues with J.J. McCarthy out for the whole year. Sam Darnold has been in the league for 5 seasons now, maybe 6. He got drafted in 2018. So I guess this is his 6th season, and he has done nothing with the Jets, done nothing when he was really a backup for like a couple other teams. And when he played, he maybe had one good game when he was like a starter. So I'm not super confident. He does have Justin Jefferson. That really helps. And Jordan Addison, who I don't really know the status of right now. I know he like
I think he's gonna be suspended, right?
Nah, a couple of weeks ago, I don't
No
think
idea.
a couple ago he like had to like get carted off the field, but I haven't heard a thing since.
Yeah, I heard about that. It actually ended up not being a big deal. I
Yeah.
forget exactly what the status was, but I know they said he's like gonna play week 1. With TJ Hawkinson though, he's not playing week 1. I think he's going to be out for
That's
like
some time.
2 to 3 weeks. I think maybe more. But he's on the physically unable to play list, so that might be 4 to 6 weeks actually.
I
Yeah,
think it's at least 4 because I know the IR is at least 4 weeks.
correct.
Yeah, so he's going to miss the first 4 games, and that's going to be a huge detriment to their offense.
Absolutely. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that's it. That's the end.
Yeah, I'll just add, Hunter, I completely agree with what you said about both the Bears and the Packers. In that really that they have 3 wide receivers that similar to the Texans that will be a wide receiver one, like every week it'll change. Keenan
Mhm.
Allen may be the wide receiver one week, and then it'll be Roma Dunze or DJ Moore. And same goes for the Packers too, I think. Romeo Dobbs or, Christian Watson or Dontavian Wicks or somebody else will step up and be that wide receiver one similar to the Texans. So I think that's really cool to see. I just think that division is so strong. But I will touch on the West real quick, and then we'll wrap this up with going on to the next part of the show. The Niners are the true favorite in this division. I do think it'll go Niners, Seahawks, Rams, Cardinals. I'm not very high on the Rams, and I'll just quickly make my points or statements on that. Matt Stafford to me is an aging quarterback. I think he still has it, but 40 years old about. I'm not too confident. I know Sean McVay, that running back room, there constantly is a revolving door. They drafted Blake Corum. We'll see what happens. Kyron Williams should be the RB1, but now he's going to be returning punts. So
Yeah.
I don't know. The receiving core, I like Cup, but he's got to stay healthy. Puka was great last year. I mean, was it a fluke, a rookie year fluke, or will he consistently stay that way? Like they don't have a tight end for the year. Or they do have tight end, but their tight end is out for the year. So I mean, I like the Rams. I just don't think that they'll have, maybe I'm wrong. I think that they'll finish sort of middle of the pack or be a 500 team this year. On the defensive
Man,
side, they lost Aaron Donald to retirement. I'm just, it's hard for me to pick the Rams, especially with the Niners and Seahawks there. Just finishing up with the South for me. I think the Falcons are the favorite, but I do like the Buccaneers a lot. And maybe you guys will disagree, but I think there is a chance they could sneak in. I just love Baker's fit there. He showed us last year why he belonged in Tampa Bay. And I just think with Kirk Cousins again coming off the injury and in a new situation, the receivers are good, but Pitts still has to prove it. Um, I drafted him a few years ago. He kind of burned me, so I'm not really a huge fan of him, but maybe he'll prove me wrong. Same goes for Drake London. I had him on my team last year. But I really like the Buccaneers this year. I think Baker, Mike Evans, like you said, is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Chris Godwin, I still have faith in as a really good flex in fantasy. I'm just looking at a lot of these teams from fantasy perspective. And then Rashad White, I think, is still a really good running back. And now he has some of that insurance as well with Bucky Irving, who they drafted. So don't really feel confident in the Saints. And I think the Panthers will be better, but I think they'll still finish under 500. Maybe they get 8 wins. I think that's a stretch, though. I'm gonna go like 6, like you said, Hunter. But yeah, like you guys said, that pretty much wraps it up for the NFC. So we can either go into more fantasy talk now to end the show, which I think going forward we will do more of that as we get, fantasy updates as the season goes on. We can end it with making our Super Bowl picks. I think would be a great way to end the first episode. So, Mark or Hunter, if either of you guys want to start off first with your Super Bowl picks and just the reasoning why, or
Yeah.
just the picks as to like what you think will happen in the playoffs this year.
Yeah. So you know what? Give me 1 second.
I
All
know you had
right.
this all written out, so I want you
All
to touch on it.
right.
Yep.
All right. Here we go. All right. AFC 1 through 7. All right. Ravens, Chiefs, Texans, Dolphins, Jets, Bengals, Colts. All right. So AFC. So the first game would be 2 versus 7, Chiefs, Colts. Take the Chiefs. A 3-6 would be Texans, Bengals. I'm going to take the Texans. 4-5. This is Dolphins, Jets. Interdivisional matchup. Dolphins haven't won a playoff game in forever. Jets haven't made a playoff game in forever. So it's some interesting storylines there, but I think I'm going to take the Jets in a slight upset, if you even could call it that. So then it would be Ravens versus Jets, then Chiefs versus Texans, I'd say the Ravens and Texans come out of that. I said in the beginning of the show, I think the Texans could beat the Chiefs, but the Ravens beat the Texans and they make the Super Bowl. All right, that's AFC. NFC 1 through 7: Lions, Niners, Eagles, Falcons, Packers, Bears, Bucks. 2 versus 7, 49ers versus Bucks. I'm gonna take the 49ers. 3 versus 6, Eagles, Bears. I'm gonna take the Eagles. 4 versus 5, Falcons, Packers is another good 4 versus 5 game. But I'm gonna take the Packers. I think they win another opening wildcard weekend game. Next will be Lions versus Packers. I'm gonna take the Lions. Then be 49ers, Eagles. Great game. But I'm gonna take the Eagles. Eagles come up with the upset. Lions versus Eagles in the NFC Championship, and it is the Lions that come out of it. So Super Bowl 50, what is it, 59? Something like that. I don't know the
so,
number, but
2025 Super Bowl.
what?
The 2025 Super Bowl.
Let's go with that. The 2025 Super Bowl. Ravens 27, Lions 24. And the Super Bowl MVP, we're gonna go on the defensive end here. We're gonna go with linebacker Roquan Smith.
Love it. Love it. Mark?
Man, I don't have that specific
I know.
of a bracket, but I will go by division. So we're gonna start off with the AFC East. I think I'm gonna have to go with the Jets here. I see that the Bills are like kind of the favorite for the AFC East, but I'm gonna go with the Jets just because I'm gonna be optimistic here. With the AFC North, I know the Ravens are like the talk of the town. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with the Ravens. I was about to say the Bengals, but I think the Ravens are gonna be the team. AFC South, this is easy. Texans all across the board. I think if you say another team, I don't know. Like I know this division has some good teams that we mentioned, like the Colts. And we didn't really talk about the Jaguars, but I can't really see the Jaguars winning the division. Colts like have the potential, but I don't think it's gonna happen. AFC West, this is the Chiefs. Like, not even a question. Like and then let's go with the NFC East. I think the Eagles are gonna come out of this division. I would say it's the Cowboys, but they have a pretty tough schedule this year. So I just think that, they like in their first few weeks, they got to go up against teams like the 49ers. So I can't really see them winning those tough matchups. So I'm going to say the Eagles. With the North, I'm going to say the Lions come out of the North. I know we've been talking a lot about the Packers, but I think the Lions have, if we're splitting hairs here, I think the Lions have that slight edge. And they have a little bit more depth than the Packers do. With the NFC South, this has to be the Falcons. I know the Buccaneers are very good, but the Falcons are ready to just make that playoffs push this year. And then with the NFC West, I'm going to take the 49ers. It's their time to shine. So, and they're going to keep on doing it. And I think for the Super Bowl, again this year, I'm going to go with the 49ers and the Chiefs. Yeah, I think we're going to see another repeat of last year. And what?
I'd say that'd be so heartbreaking, but yeah.
It would be heartbreaking.
Hopefully a higher scoring. I mean, it was in the second half, but the first half was just
it was still great.
Year.
I still loved it.
It was a great defensive battle. There's a
difference between a bad game of low scoring and just straight up great defense.
That Patriots-Rams Super Bowl.
That sucks.
Right?
Yeah.
That was terrible. Where they only put up 3 points or something.
13-3.
Yeah. That's a bad Super Bowl in my mind. I go back to that one.
Yeah. I think one thing with the 49ers that people haven't really touched on is when they get the momentum, it's game over. You're not getting it back from them. Yeah. Deebo Samuel, big play guy. Brandon Ayuk, big play guy. Christian McCaffrey, big play guy. George Kittle as well. These guys feed off of each other. And when they get their offense going, you're not stopping them. Like, I know we watched the Lions and the 49ers in the NFC Championship last year, and it looked like the Lions were going to win, and nobody thought that was going to happen. But I mean, as soon as Brandon Ayuk made that catch that like bounced off the Lions
Yeah.
guy, like it was a different game from that point on. And I guess you could say that the 49ers have some volatility with their gameplay. Like they might
Mhm.
have the highest volatility on like who's going to be the star of that game and are they actually going to play that well. But I think, Kyle Shanahan, the coach, like he knows what he's doing with the offense. And I think we've seen that. Like they were the top team in the NFC. Dan Campbell is great too. I think he might actually be, in some cases he might actually be better than Kyle Shanahan. But I don't know. I think the way that the Lions would beat the 49ers is not to repeat the mistakes of last year. If you have something working against the team, don't switch it up.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think we're gonna see the 49ers and the Chiefs again this year. And I want to say the 49ers are going to win, but like it's so hard to say that Patrick Mahomes is not going to win if he's in the Super Bowl. So I'm going to say the Chiefs are going to win.
There you go. Do you have the MVP for the Chiefs?
The MVP. I think uh I think the MVP for the Super Bowl is going to be Patrick Mahomes. I
Yeah.
don't know. That's a pretty conservative pick, but like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like who else are you going to say is the MVP? Like mainly quarterbacks get MVP. Like it's
Mhm.
just a I don't know because everyone has like like the quarterback is the most important position on the team, which they are, but like I don't know, like why, like when are we gonna put some recognition on like other players that make big plays? Because like they're all making plays too, but you know it's gonna be Patrick Mahomes because that's what the NFL does.
Sure. For me, I'll admit I don't have as organized as a bracket like Hunter.
I was just on a flight and needed to pass the time. That's all.
So I'll do it similar to Mark. I'm kind of crafting my what I think is going to happen, my prediction as both of you are talking, but I'll go division by division as well, and then kind of take you to the AFC and NFC Championship and then the Super Bowl. So 7 teams for every conference. So I'm just trying to figure this out. So I'm a little torn with the AFC East because I think the Dolphins and Jets definitely get it. And I think the Jets are going to win that. The Bills are the team I'm 50-50 on because I think the Colts could sneak in, and I'm really tough. It's tough between both of those teams, but I'm going to say they miss it. I'm going to say that the Jets win the AFC East, and I'm going to say the Dolphins make the playoffs as well. They finish in second. I think the Bills, they have a winning record, but they come up short. I think Hunter said that earlier. I agree with that point. AFC West, I got one team. I got the Chiefs. I just don't think the Raiders, Chargers, or Broncos can. I think maybe the Raiders finish 9-8, but I don't think it's enough to get them into the playoffs. So that leaves with me with 3 teams right now. So I have the Jets, the Dolphins, the Chiefs. I got 2 teams in the North. I think it will be the Ravens and Bengals. Um, Hunter, I know you picked the Ravens to go all the way. Um, I like them a lot this year. They somehow improved their offense, especially in the running game. Takes a little bit off of Lamar. Um, their defense to me, I mean, I would love to draft their defense tonight. And the Bengals, I know we touched on them earlier in the show. I think they're definitely trying to make a statement. As long as they can stay healthy, I think Zach Taylor is going to put them in the position to make it back to the playoffs. I don't know if they'll make the Super Bowl necessarily like they did in the past, but I think that they are in the position to make the playoffs again. So that leaves me with 2 more teams in the AFC. The Texans are going to win the South. I think that's a no-brainer. I do have the Colts making it though, over the Bills. I think they're a young team. I think Anthony Richardson is going to finally stay healthy and do what he was doing before he got hurt last year. I think Jonathan Taylor is um, in line for a really big year. So I think the Texans and Colts, and I think the Bills end up missing it as like that 8th team. Moving over to the NFC, I got one team in the East. It's the Eagles. I think the Cowboys don't make it. I also don't want to pick them, but if they make it, they're a first round exit. Giants and Commanders, I'd love to pick the Giants, but we all know they're not making it. And Commanders, I think they're they're still ways away until they get back to the playoffs. I just don't see them. It'll be interesting to watch Jaden Daniels, but I don't see them making a playoff run or push towards the playoffs. The West, I got two teams here. I got the Niners and Seahawks, so that's three. We've talked enough about the West. I don't need to get into it, but the Niners are the favorite potentially, if not the favorite to come out of the West. I got three teams in the North, so this is the big one. We've been talking about this like the last hour of the show. Bears, Lions, and Packers. So that puts me at six teams, and then into the South. I'm really torn here between the Falcons and Bucks. Really, I think it will end up being the Falcons, but I really think the Bucks could give them a run for their money. And I think like I honestly think it's more of a toss up than people think. I think the Falcons are going to be picked more, but I just feel like Baker Mayfield has a year under his belt being with the Buccaneers. It's a new offense for Kirk Cousins. He's coming off that injury. There's still a lot of players on offense. Their defense, I love the Falcons defense. If they're going to get into the playoffs, it's going to be because of their defense, in my opinion. The Buccaneers, I think, are just the better. They're just the more well-rounded team. Like they all have experience playing in Tampa Bay on that offense. I think Todd Bowles will again give them a run for their money. But I'll go with the Falcons because everyone's picking them. Um, for the AFC Championship, I think it's going to be Chiefs and Ravens, and I do think the Chiefs are going to come out. I think it's going to be a really good game. Um, I mean, Lamar is going to do really well. I think it's going to be a really fun game to watch. Maybe the game of the playoffs, but I think I just can't bet against Patrick Mahomes in playoffs. It's going to be really tough to bet against him. Um, he'll find a way to get it done, and I think he goes back to the Super Bowl for the third straight year. Um, so yeah, for the NFC, I have the Niners and the Lions in a rematch of the NFC Championship. I think it's a little different this time around, Mark. I think Dan Campbell learned his lesson. I think he knows how to handle the Niners. I think we talked about it to lead off the show. They've dealt with a lot this offseason. I think they'll be great. I think I could be wrong. Like they could easily make the Super Bowl and it could be a rematch of last year, but I think the Lions finally get there. And I think just that running game, we've talked about it a lot, and that defense, I think Dan Campbell is going to put them in the right position. He's a coach that like will kind of, push you to go further and push your limits. He knows what his expectations are, and I think he's going to push that out of all his players. So, Super Bowl is going to be what week 1 was for last year, where Kadarius Toney had all those drops. It was the Chiefs and the Lions. The Lions ended up winning, but this time around, I think Andy Reid and Mahomes got this in the bag, and I think the Chiefs will three-peat. My MVP, I want to say Patrick Mahomes, but if it's not him, I think it'll be Chris Jones on defense. And I think it'll
Oh,
be a good game. I think it'll be a good game. But I do have the Chiefs winning their third championship in a row, and this time over the Lions.
nice.
There it is.
There we go.
So with that, I think that pretty much wraps it all up for episode 1. Take this time for you guys to plug your social medias for those who might be watching or listening, where they can follow you or any closing statements. Me personally, I've had a lot of fun talking with you guys. It's always great talking football, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what we're going to do with this show and where we're going to take it. Expect weekly episodes for us as the NFL season goes on. And yeah, for me on Twitter, Adam Bernstein18, on Instagram _Adam Bernstein. And like I said, it's always a pleasure talking with you guys. Hunter, Mark, if you guys want to give your closing statements or where people can follow you on social media, now's the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, so this has been a blast. It really has. I really enjoyed talking football with you guys. This has been awesome. And I can't wait for the next episode. Where to find me, Twitter at Hunter Deciver. That's Hunter, then Desiver. And Instagram's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing this podcast. This was a great episode, in my opinion. For my Instagram, it's gonna be Mark MARC _G123. It's kind of it's a little complicated, but That's my Instagram. As for Twitter, I don't actually have a Twitter, so I'm gonna get that up and running, and I will plug that as soon as I get it going. And yeah, be on the lookout for the Blitz Banter Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter that we will get up and running eventually.
NFL season's finally back. Thanks, guys, so much for watching, and we'll be back next week. Stay tuned for more.